The emergency signal cut through space like a scream in the dark. On the bridge of the human ship, Harmony's Dream, Captain Tae Siwon was enjoying his morning coffee when the distress call shattered the peaceful silence. The message crackled through their communication system, filled with static and terror. "This is Kepler 442b mining station. We're under attack. Unknown vessels have breached our defenses." The voice belonged to a young Zenthari female, her usual calm demeanor replaced by panic. "They're targeting our power grid. Our shields are failing." Tae set down his coffee cup and straightened in his captain's chair. Around him, his small crew sprang into action. Pilot Ari Minyuk's fingers danced across his control panel, while engineer Dai Youngsu pulled up tactical displays. Medic Mira Soo-young rushed onto the bridge, still wearing her medical gloves from treating a crew member's minor injury. "Captain, I'm getting multiple heat signatures around the colony," Ari reported, his voice steady despite the situation. "At least 12 ships, maybe more. They're big ones too." The distress signal continued, painting a grim picture. The mining colony housed over 3,000 beings from different species across the galaxy. Families lived there. Children played in the artificial gardens, while their parents extracted rare minerals from the planet's crust. Now those same families were hiding in emergency shelters, while raiders tore their world apart. "Sir, should I contact the Galactic?" "To the fence fleet," Dai asked, his hands hovering over the communication controls. Tae shook his head. "The nearest battlecruiser is 6 hours away. These people don't have 6 hours. He stood up, his mind already working through possibilities. The Harmony's Dream wasn't like other human ships. While most vessels from Earth carried enough firepower to level small moons, his ship was different. It was built for diplomacy, for making friends instead of enemies. The ship's corridors were lined with cultural exchange rooms instead of weapon bays. Where other vessels had missile launchers, the Harmony's Dream had advanced translation computers. Instead of plasma cannons, they carried medical supplies and gifts from 100 different worlds. The ship was designed to bring species together, not tear them apart. "Mira, what's our medical capacity?" Tae asked. "We can handle about 200 patients in our main bay, maybe 50 more in emergency spaces," she replied. "But, Captain, if we're thinking what I think we're thinking..." Another burst of static filled the bridge. This time the voice was different, desperate and fading. "Power's at 15%. They're boarding us. Please, anyone, we need help." Tae looked at his crew. These weren't soldiers. Ari had joined them because he loved exploring new worlds. Dae came aboard because he enjoyed fixing things, making them work better. Mira wanted to heal people, to save lives wherever they went. None of them signed up for a fight. But sometimes, Tae realized, the best way to stop a fight wasn't with bigger guns. Sometimes it was with something else entirely. "Set course for Kepler 442b, he ordered. "Maximum speed." The Harmony's Dream turned toward danger, carrying hope instead of weapons. The emergency broadcast reached every corner of the galaxy within minutes. On massive battleships and sleek destroyers, alien commanders received the distress call from Kepler 442b. The response was swift and predictable. Admiral Vextar of the Draconian Empire ordered his fleet of 12 warships to prepare for immediate departure. Their vessels bristled with enough firepower to crack planets in half. Commander Zolt of the Crystal Confederation readied her squadron, each ship armed with ion cannons that could vaporize asteroids. The insectoid hive mind deployed their swarm ships, designed to overwhelm enemies with sheer numbers. Then came the human transmission. "This is Captain Tae Siwon of the Earth vessel Harmony's Dream. We're closest to the distress signal and requesting permission to lead the rescue operation." The silence that followed was deafening. On the main tactical screen, shared between all responding fleets, a small blip appeared next to the massive war machines. The Harmony's Dream looked like a toy next to the alien battleships. Admiral Vextar was the first to break the silence, his deep voice rumbling with amusement. "Captain Tae, surely you jest. Your ship appears to be a civilian transport." "Negative, Admiral. We're a diplomatic vessel, but we're fully capable of handling this situation." On his bridge, Dae Youngsu pulled up the ship's specifications for the galactic database. The other commanders could now see exactly what the humans were bringing to this fight. Where other ships had weapon systems, the Harmony's Dream had conference rooms. Instead of armor plating, it had observation decks. The medical bay was 3 times larger than any warships, but the weapons array was completely empty. Commander Zolt's crystalline laughter chimed through the communication channel. "Captain, with all respect, your ship has no weapons. How exactly? Do you plan to fight raiders?" "Who said anything about fighting?" Tay replied calmly. This caused another wave of confused murmurs across the communication channels. The alien commanders exchanged glances with their bridge crews. Fighting was what you did with raiders. Everyone knew that. You showed up with bigger guns and better shields. Then you blasted them into space dust. It was simple, it was logical. It was how the galaxy worked. But humans, apparently, had different ideas. Captain Tay, Admiral Vextar said slowly, "Perhaps you should wait for our arrival. We can handle the combat situation while you provide support." "Actually, Admiral, I'd prefer to take point on this one. We're already en route and should arrive in 43 minutes. The alien commanders looked at each other through their video links. Some shook their heads in disbelief. Others whispered to their tactical officers. A few even laughed outright. The humans were volunteering to face down a fleet of unknown raiders with a ship that couldn't fight back. "Very well," Admiral Vextar finally said, his tone suggesting he was humoring a child. "You have permission to lead the rescue. We'll arrive approximately 2 hours behind you to clean up whatever mess remains." "Understood, Admiral. See you on the other side." The communication ended, leaving the alien fleets in stunned silence. On the Harmony's Dream, Captain Tay turned to his crew with a slight smile. While other species prepared for war, his team was about to try something completely different. The Harmony's Dream dropped out of hyperspace into a scene of chaos. Kepler 442b hung in the void like a wounded animal, its surface dotted with the bright flashes of explosions. 12 massive ships surrounded the mining colony, each one at least 4 times larger than the human vessel. They were ugly things, built for intimidation rather than beauty, covered in spikes and armor plating that made them look like metal predators. "Sweet Mother of Earth," Ari whispered from the pilot's seat, his hands gripping the controls tightly. "Captain, those ships are huge. Our entire vessel could fit inside one of their cargo bays." On the main screen, the colony's defensive shields flickered like a dying candle. Laser fire streaked between the raiders and the station, lighting up the darkness of space. Every few seconds, another section of the colony's outer ring would explode in a shower of debris and flame. "Captain, we're receiving multiple distress signals from the colony," Mira reported, her voice tight with concern. "They're saying the raiders have already boarded the outer sections. Families are trapped in the lower levels." Tay stood at the center of the bridge, watching the battle unfold. Any normal captain would have turned around and waited for backup. The smart thing to do was retreat and let the alien warships handle this when they arrived. But Tay wasn't thinking about smart moves. He was thinking about the children hiding in those emergency shelters. "Day, I need you to do something for me," Tay said calmly. "Yes, sir." "Shut down life support in sections C through F. Redirect all that power to our communication and translation systems. I want every piece of equipment we have focused on understanding who these raiders are and what they want." Day's fingers flew over his console. "Sir, that's going to make those sections pretty cold, but done. Our translation array is now running at 200% capacity. We can decode languages we've never heard before." "Good. Ari, take us closer to the lead." "Raider ship. Closer?" Ari's voice cracked slightly. "Captain, with respect, that ship has enough guns to turn us into cosmic dust. Trust me on this one." The Harmony's Dream moved forward, looking like a minnow swimming toward a shark. On the colony, people stopped running for a moment to stare at the small ship approaching the massive raiders. It seemed like suicide, but instead of firing weapons, the human ship did something unexpected. Every communication dish, every antenna, every broadcasting device on the vessel suddenly came to life. Tay opened channels on frequencies that most ships didn't even know existed. "This is Captain Tay Saiwan of the Earth vessel, Harmony's Dream." He broadcast on over 300 different channels simultaneously. "We're here to talk." The raider ships paused their attack. For the first time since the battle began, The laser fire stopped. 12 massive vessels turned to face the tiny human ship that had just announced it wanted to have a conversation in the middle of a war zone. "Sir," Day said quietly, "I'm picking up their response signals. Give me 30 seconds and I'll have their language decoded." The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen when humanity tried talking instead of shooting. The response from the raider ships came in a language that sounded like rocks grinding together, mixed with the howl of wind through metal. But within seconds, Day's translation systems began making sense of it. "Who dares interrupt our harvest?" The voice was deep and filled with anger. "Small ship, you will leave or be destroyed." Tay took a deep breath. This was the moment that would either save thousands of lives or get his crew killed. "We're not here to fight. We want to understand why you're attacking innocent people." The alien commanders monitoring the situation from their approaching fleets couldn't believe what they were hearing. Admiral Vextar barked orders to his weapons officers while shaking his head in disbelief. The humans are negotiating with raiders. Have they lost their minds? But on the Harmony's Dream, something interesting was happening. While Tay kept the raiders talking, his crew was busy doing what they did best. Ari had quietly activated the ship's most sophisticated sensor array. Unlike military scanners designed to find weak points for weapons targeting, these sensors were built to study alien cultures. They could analyze everything from ship construction to energy signatures to waste heat patterns. "Captain," Ari whispered, "their ships are falling apart. I'm reading massive hull stress, failing life support systems, and engines that are barely holding together. These aren't military vessels. They're civilian ships that have been hastily converted for fighting." Meanwhile, Mira was doing something no military officer would think to do. She was listening to the background chatter on the radar communication channels, the voices that weren't meant for outside ears. Her medical training had taught her to listen for distress signals that patients might not even realize they were sending. "Tay," she said quietly, her voice filled with concern. "I'm hearing children crying in the background. And medical alerts, lots of them. These ships are overcrowded and people are sick." The lead raider's voice came through again, but this time Tay heard something different in the tone. Underneath the anger was something else. Desperation. "You speak of understanding, small ship. There is nothing to understand. We take what we need to survive. This is the way of the void." "Survive?" Tay asked gently. "Survive what?" There was a long pause. In that silence, Ari's sensors picked up more details. The raider ships weren't just falling apart from poor maintenance. They showed signs of hasty construction, emergency repairs, and modifications that screamed of people working with whatever materials they could find. "Our world burns," the raider finally said, and for the first time, his voice cracked slightly. "Our star grows angry and swallows our home. We flee with our children, our elders are sick. But the void is cold and empty. We must take from others to feed our young." Mira's eyes widened as she processed the medical data she was intercepting. "Captain, I'm reading malnutrition signatures, radiation sickness, and what looks like symptoms of long-term space exposure. These aren't raiders, they're refugees." The pieces suddenly clicked together in Ty's mind. These weren't evil pirates attacking colonies for profit. They were desperate families, running from a dying world with nowhere else to go. They were attacking the colony, not because they wanted to hurt people, but because they were trying to save their own children. "How long have you been traveling?" Tay asked softly. 17 cycles. 17 cycles since we watched our world begin to die." The human approach was working. Instead of preparing for battle, they had discovered the truth. The story of the Korthak unfolded like a tragedy written across the stars. As Day's translation systems worked overtime, more details emerged from the intercepted communications. The Korthak homeworld had orbited a stable star for millions of years, until something went terribly wrong. "Our sun began to eat itself," the Korthak leader explained, his voice heavy with grief. "The wise ones called it stellar collapse. Each day our star grew hungrier, pulling in more matter, burning hotter and brighter. The oceans boiled away first, then the atmosphere began to burn." Mira was furiously taking notes on her medical tablet, cross-referencing the symptoms she was detecting with known stellar radiation effects. "Captain, what they're describing matches the early stages of a supernova. Their entire solar system is dying. The lead Korthak, who identified himself as War Chief Throkul, continued his tale. We built ships from whatever we could find. Mining vessels, cargo haulers, even old passenger transports, anything that could carry our people to safety. But space is vast and cold. Our children grow weak. Our elders fade. We have no choice but to take what we need from those who have plenty. Through the view screen, Tay could see the Korthak vessels more clearly now. What he had initially taken for armor plating was actually layers of mismatched hull materials welded together in desperate attempts to keep the ships intact. Emergency patches covered hull breaches. External cargo pods bulged with supplies and equipment. How many of you are there? Tay asked gently. 47,000 souls across 12 ships, the last survivors of our world. The number hit the bridge crew like a physical blow. 47,000 people, including families and children, crammed into ships that were barely holding together. They had been traveling through space for over a year, watching their supplies dwindle and their people die while searching for a new home, sir, Ari said quietly. I'm detecting massive energy signatures approaching. The alien battle fleets will be here in less than an hour. Tay knew what would happen when those warships arrived. They would see raiders attacking a colony. The alien battle fleets arrived with all the fury of an approaching storm. Admiral Vextar's draconian warships dropped out of hyperspace first, their massive hulls bristling with weapons that could glass entire continents. Commander Zolt's Crystal Confederation followed moments later, their sleek vessels humming with deadly energy. The hive mind swarm ships poured in like angry insects, ready to overwhelm any enemy through sheer numbers. What they found defied everything they understood about warfare. The Harmony's Dream sat motionless between the Korthak ships and the mining colony, looking impossibly small against the backdrop of vessels that could destroy planets. But instead of the expected battle scene, there was an eerie calm. No weapons were firing. No shields were flashing under bombardment. Captain Tay, Admiral Vextar's voice boomed across the communication channels. Report your status immediately. Why haven't you engaged the raiders? Admiral, I need you to hold your fire, Tay replied calmly. All fleets maintain position and do not target the Korthak vessels. The what vessels? Commander Zolt asked, her crystalline voice sharp with confusion. The refugees, Tay said simply. These aren't raiders, Admiral. They're the last survivors of a dying world. The silence that followed was deafening. On bridges across the assembled fleet, alien commanders stared at their screens in disbelief. The Hive Mind Collective buzzed with confused chatter in their insectoid language. Captain, explain yourself, Admiral Vextar demanded. We have 47 ships ready to engage hostiles, and you're telling us they're refugees. Instead of answering directly, Tay did something that would be talked about in military academies for decades to come. He opened a galaxy-wide broadcast channel and transmitted everything his crew had learned about the Korthak situation. The story of their dying star, their desperate flight through space, and their tragic choice to attack colonies not from greed, but from the need to save their children. Across the galaxy, beings stopped what they were doing to listen. On Zenthari. Commercial stations, workers gathered around communication screens. In draconian military academies, cadets watched in stunned silence. The Crystal Confederation's ruling council called an emergency session just to hear the broadcast. But Tay wasn't finished. While the galaxy absorbed the Korthak story, Day had been working furiously at his station, accessing the human diplomatic database. Earth's exploration vessels had mapped thousands of worlds over the centuries, cataloging which ones could support life and which ones were empty. War Chief Throkul, Tay said, switching to a private channel with the Korthak leader. I'm transmitting coordinates to 3 uninhabited star systems. Each one has planets that could support your people. The data package that followed contained detailed star charts, atmospheric readings, and resource surveys. These weren't just random coordinates. They were carefully selected worlds that could actually sustain Korthak civilization. The first system has a planet with vast freshwater oceans and breathable atmosphere, Tay explained. The second has rich mineral deposits your people could mine. The third has multiple habitable moons around a gas giant. Admiral Vextar's voice, cut through the transmission. "Captain Tay, surely you're not suggesting we simply let these raiders go?" "I'm suggesting we help them find a home," Tay replied. "Admiral, what would you do if your world was dying and your children were starving?" The question hung in space like a challenge, forcing every commander in the fleet to confront an uncomfortable truth. Would they really be so different from the Korthak if their own worlds faced destruction? War Chief Throkel's response came slowly, each word heavy with the weight of his people's suffering. "You offer us hope, where we have known only despair. But why? What do you gain from helping those who were your enemies moments ago?" Tay could hear the suspicion in the Korthak leader's voice, and he understood it completely. After months of being turned away from every inhabited system, of being shot at by defense fleets and hunted by patrol ships, trust didn't come easily to the refugees. "We gain nothing," Tay said honestly, "but sometimes doing the right thing isn't about what you get in return." On the bridge of the Harmony's Dream, Mira stepped forward. She had been listening to the medical alerts coming from the Korthak ships, and her heart was breaking with each report. Children with radiation sickness, elders dying from malnutrition, pregnant mothers giving birth in overcrowded cargo holds with no proper medical care. "War Chief Throkel," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "I'm Dr. Mira Suyung, Chief Medical Officer of this vessel. I'm detecting serious medical emergencies aboard your ships. Please, let me help your people." The silence stretched for long minutes. Finally, Throkel's voice returned, rougher than before. "Our healers died when our world burned. We have lost many on this journey. Too many." "Then let me come aboard," Mira said without hesitation. "I'll bring medical supplies and treat whoever needs help. No payment required, no strings attached, just one healer helping another people survive." The alien fleet commanders watched in awe. Amazement as a small shuttle launched from the Harmony's Dream and headed straight for the largest Korthak vessel. Admiral Vextar had to grip his command chair to keep from ordering his ships to intercept it. Meanwhile, Day was having his own conversation with the Korthak engineers. Through the translation system, he learned that their ships were running on failing life support systems, and that the three worlds Tai had offered, while habitable, would need significant work to support a population of 47,000 refugees. "I might have something that could help," Day said, pulling up files from Earth's Colonial Development database. "We've had to make hostile worlds livable for centuries. It's kind of what we do." What Day shared next made the assembled alien fleets go completely silent. Atmospheric processes that could make poisonous air breathable in months instead of decades. Soil treatment systems that could turn barren rock into fertile farmland. Geothermal plants that could provide power and heat even on frozen worlds. But most impressive of all were the biological solutions. Earth's scientists had developed hardy crops that could grow in almost any environment, water purification bacteria that could clean entire oceans, and atmospheric algae that could terraform planet's air supply in record time. "These techniques," Commander Zolt whispered on the fleet communication channel, "they could transform dead worlds into garden planets." "That's exactly what we've been doing for 300 years, Day replied matter-of-factly. "Earth wasn't the friendliest place when we started, but we learned how to work with nature instead of fighting it." Admiral Vextar found his voice first. "Captain Tay, your species comes from a death world. Most civilizations that survive such planets become conquerors, yet you use your knowledge to help others survive hostile environments rather than dominate them." "Why would we want to dominate anyone?" Tay asked, genuinely puzzled. "The universe is big enough for everyone to find their place in it." The galaxy was beginning to understand that humans were unlike any species they had ever encountered. The first meeting between humans, Korthak, and the Galactic Fleet took place aboard the Harmony's Dream, 12 hours after Mira had returned from treating the refugees. She had saved 14 lives that day, including twin Korthak children who were suffering from severe radiation poisoning. The ship's main conference room had never hosted such an unusual gathering. War Chief Throkel sat across from Admiral Vextar, while Captain Tay served as mediator between beings who had been ready to kill each other that morning. The room's walls displayed star charts showing the 3 proposed worlds for Korthak's settlement. "The terms are simple," Tay said, looking around the table. "The Korthak cease all raids on inhabited systems immediately. In exchange, the Galactic Defense Fleet provides safe escort to their new homes, and human terraforming teams help make those worlds habitable." Throkul's massive hands, each one the size of a human head, drummed nervously on the table. His people had been wanderers for so long that the idea of a permanent home seemed impossible to believe. "You ask us to trust those who would have destroyed us hours ago," he said, his deep voice rumbling like distant thunder. Admiral Vextar leaned forward, his reptilian features softening slightly. The broadcast of the Korthak story had affected him more than he cared to admit. "War Chief, I have 3 daughters on my homeworld. If Draconia faced destruction, I would do anything to save them, even raid other worlds if necessary." The admission hung in the air like a bridge spanning an impossible gulf. Around the table, other fleet commanders nodded in reluctant understanding. Commander Zolt spoke next, her crystalline voice chiming softly. "The Confederation has colony ships we're not currently using. They could house your people during the settlement process." The hive mind representative, an insectoid being whose translation device gave him a mechanical voice, buzzed thoughtfully. "Our construction swarms could help build your cities. We understand the need for rapid development." Tay watched as former enemies began planning a shared future. The mining colony had reported that the Korthak had withdrawn from their space entirely, ending the threat without a single weapon being fired. But the real work was just beginning. Over the next 6 hours, the conference room became a planning center, where species that had never worked together before started coordinating the largest refugee relocation in galactic history. Day shared terraforming schedules, explaining how atmospheric processes could make the first world breathable within 3 months. Mira outlined medical protocols for keeping the Korthak healthy during the transition. The alien commanders divided their fleets into escort groups and supply convoys. The first convoy of Korthak ships will depart for system designation Alpha 7. "Tomorrow," Admiral Vextar announced, "my battle group will provide escort and perimeter security during the initial settlement phase." Throkul stood slowly, his towering frame casting shadows across the conference table. For a moment, everyone held their breath, wondering if the war chief would accept the offer or demand better terms. Instead, he did something that would become legend throughout the galaxy. The massive Korthak leader bowed deeply to the assembled beings, a gesture of respect from a warrior who had never bent his knee to anyone. "You have given my people something we thought was lost forever," he said quietly. "Hope." The negotiation was complete. 47,000 refugees would soon have a new home, and the galaxy had learned that sometimes the greatest victories came not from superior firepower, but from superior compassion. 6 months had passed since the Korthak crisis, and the galaxy was a different place. The first reports from the new settlements had exceeded everyone's expectations. What had begun as desperate refugee camps had transformed into thriving communities that other species now visited to study and learn from. Captain Tay stood on the observation deck of the Harmony's Dream, reading the latest updates from the 3 Korthak worlds. New Throk, the first settlement, now housed 15,000 Korthak who had successfully adapted to their ocean world. The atmospheric processes had worked perfectly, and the first crops planted with human seeds were ready for harvest. "Captain, incoming transmission from Galactic Council headquarters," Ari called from the bridge. "It's marked as urgent priority." Tay made his way to the main screen, where the holographic image of High Chancellor Viridian appeared. The elderly, Zenthari's usually stern expression was replaced by something Ty had never seen before, genuine admiration. "Captain Tay Siwan, by order of the Galactic Council, you and your crew are hereby awarded the Stellar Cross for extraordinary service to galactic peace," the Chancellor announced. "Your actions at Kepler 442b have fundamentally changed how we approach conflict resolution. The commendation was unprecedented. The Stellar Cross was typically awarded to military heroes who had won great battles or commanders who had saved entire star systems through superior firepower. Never before had it been given for preventing a war rather than winning one. But the real changes went far deeper than awards and ceremonies. Across the galaxy, diplomatic corps were being restructured based on the human model. The Draconian Empire had commissioned its first hospital ship. The Crystal Confederation was training mediators instead of just soldiers. Even the practical hive mind had begun, including cultural specialists in their exploration fleets. "Sir," Mira said, joining him, "on the observation deck, I just received a message from War Chief Throkul. The Korthak children we treated have fully recovered, and they've named their first city Harmony in honor of our ship." The news filled Tai with a warmth that no military victory could have provided. Those children would grow up in safety, never knowing the terror of fleeing a dying world or the desperation that had driven their parents to raid other colonies. Day appeared with his own report. "Captain, we're receiving requests from 17 different species asking for human terraforming assistance. It seems everyone wants to learn how to make hostile worlds livable, instead of just conquering inhabited ones." The irony wasn't lost on any of them. Humans came from Earth, a world so hostile that most species considered it uninhabitable. By all galactic logic, humanity should have become a race of conquerors, using their survival skills to dominate weaker civilizations. Instead, they had chosen a different path. Every challenge Earth had thrown at them, deadly weather, poisonous atmosphere, aggressive wildlife, limited resources, had taught them not to take what others had, but to make something from nothing. "The Galactic Defense Academy wants to interview you about the human doctrine," Ari reported with a grin. "They're calling your negotiation techniques revolutionary." Tay laughed softly. Revolutionary. All they had done was listen, understand, and offer help instead of judgment. To humans, it seemed like common sense, but apparently that kind of thinking was rare in a galaxy where strength was usually measured by the size of your weapons. The Harmony's dream continued its mission, now with a new reputation preceding it wherever they went. They were no longer just another diplomatic vessel. They had become a symbol of what Deathworld survivors could accomplish when they chose compassion over conquest. In the end, the most dangerous species in the galaxy had proven to be the most peaceful.